So welcome everybody to this webinar from Active Schools. This webinar, the purpose, as I'm sure most of you know, is to let you all know more about this school recognition process. So this is a way to celebrate schools for the great work that they do, incorporating the active school culture that Active Schools advocates for. If you have any issues at any point in time, you can message me directly. I'll be facilitating. I have two great featured presenters here. The first half, Brian Downhauer is going to walk us through some of the logistical pieces, and then Matt Wood is going to jump on about half past the hour and talk from more of the teacher's perspective, since he successfully applied for and received recognition all 9 of the essential elements. So before we get started and get this thing rolling with what we have to talk about, let's hear from all of you. So in the chat box, go ahead and introduce yourself and what school, district, or program that you are representing. So while you're putting that in the chat, I'm going to get my screen share going. Right. So I'm going to have Brian jump on the call now. Or actually in a couple minutes, Brian, I guess I'll walk through some of these first 3 slides. So hopefully all of you know who and what Active Schools is by now. We started way back with Michelle Obama as part of her Let's Move initiative, and we continue that work today. So we're trying to basically provide more movement opportunities for students, and we believe that they deserve all of the benefits that hopefully we all know and agree students receive from being more physically active. Active Schools, let me back up, jumping the gun there. Active Schools is part of a bigger team here. So when that presidency ended, Active Schools really had the opportunity to either become their own organization or find somebody in our space that shares similar values and goals and missions and all. And we found that in Action for Healthy Kids. So Action for Healthy Kids is our home organization. We appreciate all the support that they provide. And last fall, Action for Healthy Kids merged with RMC Health, who's another great partner with the work that we do. So we're all one big team to obviously there accelerate the impact by joining forces to expand our reach and our efforts. So Active Schools also has some other members that are part of our team. Sort of like the governing body or the advisory council helps provide some insight in terms of what we do. I am the one person that works directly with Active Schools or for Active Schools for 20 hours a week roughly, so part-time. And then we have a strategic partnership with the University of Northern Colorado. So can't thank Brian and his team enough for all the support in creating the foundational documents and helping us launch the school recognition. And we'll allude to the program endorsement piece in this slide, but focus mainly on school recognition. And then also the Active Schools Research Alliance, which is one of our work groups to just help guide the best practices and everything to make sure we're on point with what we want to accomplish. So with that being said, Brian, I'll allow you to take it from here.
All right, thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Downhauer. I'm a professor at the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, Colorado. I've been here for 11 years now. As Nick alluded to, the University of Northern Colorado Active Schools Institute conducts research on physical activity promotion before, during, and after the school day. And so there was a really natural fit with the Active Schools movement in terms of the type of work we wanted to do. And a few years ago, Active Schools really wanted to shift into focusing on evidence-based practices for school physical activity promotion. So I'm just going to start today by giving a little bit of background about kind of how we got to where we are, before talking through the details of the school recognition process, because I think it's relevant. So one of the big things that happened over the past 2 years is Active Schools has developed a framework for an active school culture. And many of you on the call might be familiar with comprehensive school physical activity programs, or CSPAPs or CSPAPs. There's a framework from the CDC that has 5 components of comprehensive school physical activity programming. Through a deep dive in the research literature, what we found is that there's something bigger than CSPAP. There's this idea of a culture that needs to be established in schools that allows physical activity to become an integral part of what the school community is all about. And so the framework that you see here tries to capture some of those additional elements that are really important, in addition to those 5 components of CSPAP that are still inside of this model. And so really, the way that this new model was formed is looking at the research and trying to pull out what those evidence-based practices are, distill them and synthesize them, and then try to communicate them in some kind of meaningful way to the field. And so if you go to the next slide, Nick, basically there's 9 essential elements of an active school culture. And so if you look at numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, those are the traditional 5 components of CSPAP. But as we looked into the research literature, we found these other things are important as well. For example, diversity, equity, and inclusion happens to be the number 1 piece because of the inequities that exist around physical activity behaviors in youth. And there's a lot of research that shows these inequities. And so Active Schools believes that physical activity is a right, not a privilege. And so that's why diverse, equitable, and inclusive opportunities are number 1 on the list of 9 essential elements. The other piece you might notice is like number 6, planning, implementation, and evaluation. Those that might be familiar with the CSPAP guide that the CDC put out in 2013, they talk about the importance of this. There's a whole body of research around implementation science and how you actually take these good ideas for what should be happening and put them into action in schools. And so this element came out to show like a systematic and strategic process for planning, implementation, and evaluation in schools. And then some of these higher level things like policy and advocacy, professional development and training. We know these things are extremely important if you want to build a sustainable culture around active schools. So these are the 9 essential elements that really are the foundation for everything that happens around active schools, including the school recognition process that we're talking about today. Okay, so just a quick review of some of the things that Active Schools offers to help schools implement an active school culture. The first thing is really the entry point is schools and individuals identifying themselves as champions. This is simply the registration process with Active Schools. So that's step 1, going to the website, saying, hey, I'm committed to this, I'm going to be a champion, and my school is on board. Then, over the last couple of years, Active Schools has developed many resources that are available for free on the website. These are the foundational documents that sort of describe what an active school culture is all about and describe those evidence-based practices within the 9 essential elements. There's also online professional development available that's for free that I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, that allows school professionals to learn more about an active school culture and really to be guided through a process of implementing. And then lastly, Active Schools is interested in working with these really all-in types of schools for capacity building, where we can offer additional support around some of the tools and resources that are available. So as I mentioned, there's national guidance documents. The one on the bottom left is the main document that goes through all the research. And so if you're really interested in the justification for those 9 essential elements and how we know they actually work, that's the document for you. It's pretty research heavy. But then if you look at the top 2 documents, the implementation guide and the menus, these are much more actionable documents that really help schools understand what is it that we need to do to implement evidence-based practices in physical activity. And then the last one on the bottom right, many schools struggle with measuring or evaluating in some way their physical activity programs and the process and outcomes associated with them. So that handbook was developed to give specific tools for measuring different variables associated with an active school culture. A couple other tools that are available: the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program Questionnaire. This is a self-evaluation tool that schools can use. It's just self-report. It asks you yes or no questions about whether your school has certain practices in place or not. And then it gives you a score, and your school gets a grade depending on how many of the evidence-based practices are being implemented in the school at that time period. And then for those interested, we're trying to get the next generation of physical education teachers to know how to do this. And so the PETE program implementation guide is for those pre-service physical education, teacher education programs around the country, so that they can start integrating active schools concepts into their programs. This tool is available for free through Active Schools and allows schools to actually estimate the physical activity behaviors of kids. And so this has the students answer questions about their physical activity behaviors, and then it gives an estimate of how many minutes kids are getting in different segments of the school day. So this is one of the best available tools out there for schools to practically understand physical activity behaviors of kids without it being cost prohibitive. Like if you think about putting accelerometers on a bunch of kids, that's pretty expensive. But this tool was calibrated with accelerometry, but only requires answering survey questions. So it's a little bit more feasible for schools to do. And then I mentioned the online professional development. The 3 courses that are available for free, those go around the entire framework for an active school culture. And like I said, they guide schools and individuals through a process of implementing an active school culture and evaluating it. And folks can earn 18 hours of continuing education credit by completing those courses. Okay, so now that we have that sort of background, let's dive into looking at what the actual school recognition process is all about. So as Nick mentioned early on, this is really about celebration. We know that so many schools and so many physical education teachers, classroom teachers, physical activity leaders, they're doing amazing things to promote physical activity in their schools. And we simply want to celebrate and recognize those schools and those champions that are out there in the schools. Through the recognition process, schools are prompted to document their alignment with the evidence-based practices that have been established from the research. And just as a little incentive, schools can earn badges in each element that they show they're implementing evidence-based practices. If they get enough badges, they can earn a flag that they can wave, almost like a blue ribbon. If you know a blue ribbon school, they post that flag up there or that banner, and they're so proud. That's what we want for active schools. So there's a banner and a flag that can go and promote that, this school has been recognized. And then we'll also talk a little bit more about some other incentives and rewards that can come along with pursuing school recognition. Okay, so let's just go through the steps. First of all, on the submission side. So the number one thing that folks can do is, if you haven't reviewed the guiding framework or the menus of evidence-based practice, that's the starting point. The first and most important thing is to familiarize yourself with those evidence-based practices. And I think as you're reading these documents, you're going to start to think, oh, we're actually doing that. Oh, we're doing that. We're doing this. We're doing this. And hopefully those light bulbs are going to go off, and you're going to see how many wonderful things you're already doing in alignment with these evidence-based practices. You may also find things that, oh man, I didn't even think about that. That's something that we might want to consider in the future. So familiarizing yourself with those documents is step one. Number two is you're going to download the application from the Active Schools website. And I don't know if we'll circle back there later, Nick. I don't have a screenshot of it, but I think it's relatively easy to find, and Nick's putting a link in the chat there for you. The third one is, once you have the application, you'll provide your school and contact information. And then for each of the elements, the 9 essential elements, you will pick and choose which ones you want to pursue recognition in. So for example, let's say you have a really, really strong physical education program at your school. You could scroll down directly to the PE component or the PE element of an active school culture and start to look at the evidence-based practices within there. And all you're doing is, in narrative form, you're describing what's happening at your school. And in particular, you want to talk about how it aligns directly to those evidence-based practices. Not only do you need to describe what your school is doing for each of those practices, but you want to have some kind of evidence or documentation that supports what you're saying. So if you say we have 150 minutes a week of physical education at the elementary school level, presenting something like a school schedule that shows how you've done that in your school would be a relevant artifact or document that you could put in as evidence to support your description. So basically, you do that for any of the elements that the school is wishing to pursue recognition in. And you don't have to do all of them. I want to make that clear, because Matt's going to come on here in just a minute and show you how he did every single one of them. And you don't have to do that to start off with. You can, of course, but you don't have to. So you're going to choose the ones that you want to do, okay? And you can go in phases and go along a timeline. So then on the other back end, there's a review process. There's a committee that reviews these applications, and it's done 3 times a year, December, May, and August. And basically what happens is there's a spreadsheet where we look at a rubric and put in points for each evidence-based practice within the element that you're pursuing recognition in. If you can earn 50 points or more in a particular element, that earns a badge for that element. And what you see on the left-hand side there are the badges. And those come in 2 forms. There's a digital version that schools can use on their websites, on their emails, on their marketing and promotional materials. And then there's also a physical version that comes in like a big sticker that basically can go anywhere in your school. It can go on the PE bulletin board, up by the front office, wherever schools want to put these. And the way I kind of envision this is that schools might have an active schools bulletin board, and over time they start adding in these badges for all the different practices that they're implementing in their school. Okay, so I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty here just so you can see that this is doable and exactly how it's done. So these are screenshots of the actual application. This can be downloaded in a Word document or in a Google document, and then it's fillable. And Nick, if you click the next button, the first part is simply the school information, the name of the school, the district name, and what state it's located in. And then if you click again, it's contact information of the person who's submitting. Ideally, this is the active schools champion, the person that is sort of leading these efforts or coordinating the efforts in the school. You can list a primary contact and a secondary contact with email. And then if you look over on the right-hand side, there's basically a page for each element of an active school culture. And then these are the specific evidence-based practices that are in the menus that I was referring to earlier. And basically what a school will do is they'll look through each of these. If they feel like they're implementing this particular evidence-based practice, they'll click the checkbox and then use the text box underneath to add their description of exactly how they're meeting that particular evidence-based practice and how they're implementing it. And as I mentioned, this is a choice of the school, like family and community engagement. If this is not an area where a school feels strong in, they can totally skip over this entire section. Or they can pick and choose within each element which of those specific evidence-based practices they're doing and describe them. And they can still earn up to 50 points without doing every single evidence-based practice within each component. And this will make more sense when I show you the rubric in just a minute. Okay, so once you've completed the application, there's then an online submission form. And basically the application document is added as an attachment to the final application for recognition. And then for each of the elements, you simply indicate whether you're pursuing recognition in that element or not. And if you say yes, you are pursuing recognition in that element, it will then prompt you on the next screen to upload any documents or evidence that you have to support that area. So this is where you bring in a PDF attachment of your schedule, for example, that I used in the previous example. And so you can add up to 5 supporting documents that shows, it basically supports the description that you provided and really gives that, the accountability piece. It's, yes, we said we're doing it, And now we're going to show you some proof that we've actually been doing it. On the back end, on the review side, this is the rubric that's being used for each of those evidence-based practices. So we're really looking for three different things. Number one, we're looking for a really clear and comprehensive description of the programs and practices that are being implemented at the school. We really want to see exactly what's happening in the school and have no questions about who, what, where, when, or why all these things are happening. The second piece is making sure that what the practices that are being implemented are directly aligned with the evidence-based practices in the menus. And then the last piece is that evidence and documentation piece. Are you actually able to show some kind of artifact or proof that this is being done in the school? And so for each one of those, a school can get up to 10 points on a scale from 0 to 10. And that's how you start working towards that 50 points for the badge that I was talking about earlier. So this is the spreadsheet that's actually used in the review process. So you see all the evidence-based practices on the left-hand side for family and community engagement. We'll simply check whether the school is seeking recognition because they don't have to do it for all of them. And then the description, the alignment, and the evidence will each receive a score up to 10 points. And then that evidence-based practice will have an average score. And then we look at the total at the very end across all evidence-based practices in that element to see if 50 points or more are earned in order to earn that badge. So why consider school recognition? We talked about celebration. This is something that you can do just to show your community that you value physical activity and the wonderful things that you're doing and have that celebration piece. We also see it in the bigger picture in terms of advocacy. If you are showing off these badges and showing your commitment to being an active school and showing off your flags and banners and stuff like that, people start asking questions and they want to know what you're doing and they want to know why you're doing it and they want to know what impact it's had on your school. And there's this whole advocacy component when you start to recognize schools for the amazing work they're doing around physical activity. We also have some professionals in our field that go above and beyond. They are busting their butts every day to do good things for kids. And this is just another way to recognize those individuals that are really working hard every day to coordinate these efforts at schools. So as a little extra incentive, we do host an active school summit each year that Nick's going to tell you more about at the end. But those schools that seek recognition and earn at least 3 badges will get a 50% discount on their registration for the summit. And those schools that earn 5 or more badges, and therefore the actual big flag and banner, the Active Schools banner, they will get a free registration to the Active School Summit so that you can come and join us and be celebrated in person for all your efforts. So with that, we're going to pause here. I just talked about the sort of system of school recognition. We're going to open it up and see if folks have questions before we transition over to Matt, who's going to show you exactly what it looks like in practice.
For questions, feel free to unmute at this point and ask them, or if you prefer, you can type them into the chat. We'll pause here and allow people to make that decision.
Nick, this is BJ with 100 Mile Club, and I have a question on with the review being done in December and May, and was it August, I believe? With those, does the school need to get that in, like for December, get that in by November 30th to be reviewed in December, or can they turn in the information anytime in December? Where's an actual day or date deadline for that?
Great question. Brian, do you want to take that
Sure.
one?
This year we were vague and we shouldn't have been. So we're going to accept applications all the way through December till the end of December, which means the final review will take place early January.
Thank you.
Moving forward, though, it will be the end of the month prior to. So it will be November. Is it 30 days in November? 30 days of September.
Yeah.
And November. So November 30th would be like moving forward in 2024 would be like the cutoff, so that gives the review team a whole month to review during, for example, like the month of December.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did see in the chat there was a question from Fran around the youth activity profile. Is that right?
Yes, I do. I have a bunch of questions about it, but it may be something that we talk separately about it, because I have a bunch of questions about it, and also some other questions about other organizations getting engaged with this process. Like I said, probably you and I, Nick, could have another conversation.
Chat. Yeah, for sure. We'll message each other, email, and find a time. Happy to tell you more.
Because I've already got like 10 questions I want to ask about this.
All right. So for anyone else who wants to learn more, I did put the link into the chat, and then on that link has a short little video. It's like a minute or two video, which sort of just gives you a slightly more in-depth description of what the YAP is, to elaborate on what Brian already mentioned about. Other questions? All right, Brian, I have one for you, but before we break and turn it over to Matt. If you presented a lot of stuff, right? So if somebody's going to show up tomorrow to school and have like one immediate thing that they want to do to like work towards school recognition, like what's the first step, first action item that they can do tomorrow to sort of like dive in to the rest of the process?
Yeah, step number one, I think the most important step is I would download and print the menus of evidence-based practices from the Active Schools website. That document is created almost like a checklist. There's little boxes next to every evidence-based practice, and just doing a self-reflection on what the school is already doing will give you a really good indication of where you might be ready to pursue recognition and which particular elements you might want to pursue recognition. So use that as your checklist. Maybe talk to other team members that you have in your school to better understand what's actually happening, and then go from there. And the only other thing is start small. Pick one or two that you want to go for, and then move, go ahead and get it in. This will be ongoing, so you can keep putting in more stuff over time.
Love it. Well, thank you, Brian, for all of the information that you shared here, but even more appreciation to all the work that you did to lead up to where we are today with creating all of the documents that you shared, and then establishing the school recognition process. So we appreciate you and are grateful for all the hard work that you do to devote time and energy into creating active school cultures around the country, around the world, and everywhere else. So keep up the great work. All right, let's turn it over to Matt Wood. Matt, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself and tell everyone where you're coming from, and the school that you're at, and anything else you want to share.
All right, well, thank you for having me. My name's Matt Wood, and I am the PE teacher at Stafford Elementary. About 36 elementary schools in Tacoma School District. And so I is that we need to really try to highlight all the things, health and fitness, for the positive things that it does for our kids. And I think the more that we can kind of highlight all the things that we're doing and all the great things that our kids are doing and our families are doing and our communities are doing to support the health and wellness of our kids, needs to really be, I think we could do a better job making sure that we do that. And so, like Brian was saying, I was one of the pilot schools for the Active Schools program for the this past year, and as part of that, we were able to apply for recognition, and I went ahead and kind of dove in, and it It was a lot. I'll be completely honest about that. Doing all 9 of the components. I think my application ended up being about 44 pages, and it was all done at once. And so I think what's important is really to kind of find 1 or 2, maybe 3 areas that you're doing really well, that you have a lot of evidence for, to be able to kind of start with those instead of trying to do everything, because it would get overwhelming. And I think it's just important to be able to make sure, do what you're doing well, and then kind of search out other ways that we can really highlight what we're doing in our schools. And so I think we can maybe go on to the next one. Next slide here. So I think I'm just gonna talk about 2 of the components that we worked on, because if we talked about all 9, it would be a much longer webinar. So the first one here is physical activity during the school day. And I think we picked these 2 because it's things that we already do, but we wanted to kind of really highlight how easy it is to be able to get the recognition to be able to do the things that we're doing well. And so up in the first one, it says math and movement. That was a PD that I did with our instructional facilitator in our building, our coach, to be able to teach movement strategies in different math curriculums that the teachers were doing, and to teach them how to integrate movement. So we were able to put together different resources for teachers that were to be able to teach their math programs that was connected to the math standards, but also to the health and PE standards, but given strategies of teaching different math problems and using kids using their bodies and being able to answer questions using different movements, and being able to find ways to use the movement to be able to improve their math. So we were able to do that professional development. It was not only from our building, we had people from other buildings in our district as well that we were able to come to that we were sharing. And I think one of the things that they talked about is they wish that was done at the beginning of the school year. So then that way they could have been able to use it all year long. And so that was really fun to be able to hear that. And then some of the other things that we did, if you look at the bottom there, we have some sensory pathways in our building. So when kids are walking around the building, they're able to move in different ways. And so I think any way that we can get kids moving is important. So you can use it as kids are walking down the hall for just to recess. You can use it as kind of separate pull-out activities for kids that need a little bit more support throughout the school day. Down there in the middle, we use a lot of physical activity breaks in the classrooms. And so whether it's as a physical activity break, or maybe indoor rainy day recess. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, we get a lot of rain. We're in the middle of this atmosphere classrooms, and being able to kind of stop what they're doing and being able to kind of reset their minds and their bodies to be able to help them focus is important. And over on the left there, those are some kids doing parkour during our field day. We were able to bring in, as part of a research study that I was doing, I had a social emotional learning company come in, and they focus on using parkour to teach it. But we were able to do that within PE, but also during field day, we were also able to bring that in as well. So field day is another way to do physical activity during the school day, because it's, during the school day, and it's always one of the best days of the year. So those are just a few of the ways for activity during the school day. Some of the other stuff is making sure you're providing access to play equipment and facilities during the school day. So having an appropriate playground that's safe and that has a lot of varieties of different ways for kids to be able to move. So things for them to climb on, things for them to be able to spin on, swings, places for them to be able to play soccer, basketball, or places for them just to be able to walk around and do things with their friends. So really focusing on giving kids choices during those times as well, I think is important, because I think they have enough of us being able to tell them what to do. And I think being able to allow them to make those choices and make good choices during their activities is another really important learning environment for them as well. And so I think, and just doing all those things. And those are just some really easy ways. I think a lot of us do, but it's really easy to be able to collect that evidence and show what we're doing to be able to provide movement opportunities just during the school day. And I know PE is another one as well, but that's a separate category as well for the awards. And the second category is for the before and after school physical activity, is to being able to provide opportunities for kids to be able to move outside the school day, because the goal is for, you know, within a CISPAP and also the active schools programs to get kids moving 60 minutes a day, trying to get that MVP up as much as we can. In most schools, I know in Washington State, they require 100 minutes of PE a week, but our district only gives 30 minutes twice a week. So that 60 minutes, you know, is not enough. 30 minutes once a week or twice a week. So we need to be able to find other opportunities to get kids moving. So providing them opportunities for active transportation is a really big one. We partnered with the city of Tacoma several years ago, and we were able to develop a pedestrian safety curriculum for our district and city of Tacoma, to be able to teach kids within the PE programs how to walk to and from school safely, talking about traffic hazards, talking about ways to be able to just move around safely within traffic. And so we were able to teach that or bring that into our district. But also along with that, we still have the partnership with the city of Tacoma, and they help us run the walk and roll to school days. And so we did that multiple times last year, where we partnered with them and we had big celebrations and brought in volunteers from all over the city and the health department to be able to walk with kids and to be able to highlight being active and being healthy. And it's simple things too. So providing bike racks for kids to be able to put their bikes. That's one of the ways that you can, you know, be able to show evidence. We also were the first school in our school district to start a walking school bus program. And so we were able to recruit parents and volunteers to be able to, on a couple different routes, be able to walk kids to school, back and forth, before school and after school, to be able to have another way to get into school so they're not having to drive. Another thing that I was able to apply for was the Fit America AMP program, to be able to provide more a running program using the Easy Scan. Right now, our playground is being rebuilt, and we haven't had a track. Or actually, we haven't had most of our playground all school year, and they're just starting to put in the grass right now out on our field. And so as soon as we're able to get our track back again, we'll be starting back up our running club for that. And then the real big one there is the Beyond the Bell with our school district. And so our district partners with Metro Parks, Tacoma, the YMCA, and some other programs. And it's facilitated through a program or a group called Green Trike, which is run through our Children's Museum in Tacoma. And they facilitate after school programming for middle school, but also elementary schools is the big one. And they do things like provide basketball, soccer, fast pitch, baseball, flag football. We do cross country track programs, and but it's all they make it really accessible. So if families can't afford it, then they scale it down and it can be free for those families. They provide they do also culture clubs. So they do like a Pacific Islander club where kids learn how to do different types of dances. And so, and they also do after school daycare programs as well, where they're able to do a lot of different types of activities and movement activities. And so it's a really cool program that we're able to do and provide to all of our kids, to be able to give them those opportunities for movement before and after school. And so, you know, that's just a few of the things that we do to be able to have that all in there.
I'll jump in here while you have another sip of water there, Matt. Just because I know it's hard to like talk nonstop after teaching all day long. So what I do want to touch on, as I mentioned briefly at the start of this, is in addition to school recognition, we also have program endorsement. So if you go to the Active Schools homepage in the top menu bar, you'll see the recognition, and then you can choose school or program. So I know we do have one program on here now. So BJ Walker from the 100 Mile Club. If there's any other programs that are joining us today, feel free to drop that into the chat so we can acknowledge who you are and what programs you do. But by doing this, we have a big group of supporting organizations, which you can find on our website. And then we have the endorsed programs. And the endorsed programs are those that have gone through a similar process as what Matt did for the school, and providing evidence for any of those 9 essential elements for how they achieve the best practices within those. So you can also find those pilot organizations that went through the process last year, similar to Matt, that are on, and then they were also invited to go through at the same timeline. So submit in January or by December, so that we can add more to that list.
Yeah, and I think, I was going to say, and I think the thing is we do a lot of these things, but we don't always necessarily do it intentionally to try to kind of put it together. It's just something that we always do, and it's always been a part of our school cultures. And so I think this is a great way to be able to kind of highlight all the things and what we really do and how important getting kids moving is.
So this is where, Matt, I'll give you the shout out and then let you touch on anything from here. So we hosted our first ever Active Schools National Summit in July of this year, and we had almost 100 people attend. It was a great event. And I'll touch on more when I get to that slide. I don't want to ruin everything. So the next one will be coming up here in July of 24. And this is where, as Brian touched on, if you go through 3 or 4, you're going to be able to come for 50% off the registration. And if you get recognized as Matt did, then we're going to welcome you for free into that summit and celebrate you as Matt was celebrated at the 2023 summit. So you see him receiving the flag, and then you see where it's posted. And Matt, I'm noticing that we might need to create a bigger flag or a bigger banner here to compete with some of the others there. So I'm going to add that to my to-do list to make sure that it doesn't get drowned out by other things that might be posted in the schools.
So yeah, I mean, and it's fun to be able to put that right in our front entry walkway with all the other awards our schools got received. And so yeah, so it's fun to be able to show off our physical education program, or our physical activity programming that we're doing here.
Okay, so we have a few minutes for questions for Matt. So anything from that you want to know for more of the hands-on approach? My friend, I see you're the first one to unmute. Does that mean you have a question? Or no?
I was looking just to put something in the chat and say, good job.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So Matt, I do have a question. While
yeah,
maybe others are waiting to ask their question or type their question. Last school year, I know the state of Washington had a big win around recess. Tell us more about that and what your involvement was in order to sort of be involved.
Yeah, so I think another one of the components is advocacy and policy. And I was involved with quite a few different groups last year, but one of them, there was a group out of Seattle called the King County Play Equity Coalition. And they, there's kind of centered out of University of Washington, Seattle Children's Hospital, and they partner with a lot of different groups to try to highlight ways to be able to keep kids moving. But one of the big things that we did last year, and they brought me into the group, was there was a bill put into our legislature to require daily recess in our state. And so we had a great state senator that put a great bill together and we were able to do a lot of different type of lobbying. And I was actually able to go down and testify as well at the House Education Committee meeting as well, to be able to talk about how important recess is and why we need to require it equitably across our entire state. Because, you know, some schools get it every day. There's a lot of schools where kids don't get recess every day. And we wanted to make sure that all kids had that equal chance to be able to get outside and have a chance to move. And so I was able to work with them with that. I co-wrote an op-ed in the Seattle Times as well, advocating for the bill and trying to make sure that we give our kids opportunities to move. And so that was a little bit, just a small part of that, my involvement as well. But I do know that I'm still working with the folks up there with different research projects and different projects surrounding our school as well, and our new program, our new playground. And our whole new playground is being rebuilt through a program with the Trust for Public Lands and cooperation with our school district and Metro Parks Department as well, to bring in a park within 10 minutes walking distance, and it'll open up to over 5,000 people for a park as well. And so that was part of that program that they came down in as well, that I was able to get connected with that advocacy group.
So I just want to highlight, just to reiterate, how what you do at the school matters, so that they could bring in somebody who is doing great things to speak to all the legislators and you know, help support the bill, so that everyone who's voting can see a practical example. If they didn't have that, probably wouldn't get passed, right? And so you were in a great position to do that. And then we have a great turnout from Washington here. So I see Terry, who's the executive director of Shape Washington, who's supporting everything, and Lori Dunn, who is always putting herself in great positions to network and build relationship with community partners and everyone, so that her students and her schools throughout the district of Seattle Public Schools can all benefit. So it does matter what y'all do. So thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone else who's here, who's doing similar things in your states and in your districts and your schools.
Good things are happening up here.
I'll pause briefly before moving on in case anyone else wants to jump in, chime in, or ask something.
If anybody has any questions about the process or anything else as well, you know, it's not as daunting as you would think it would be. It was, you know, the first time through, I did a lot, but I didn't need to. And I think that's the big thing, is just doing one thing at a time and not overwhelming yourself would be, you know, a good way to be able to do that. And, you know, finding other people to help you and support you as well. You know, I had great administrative support from my principals and, you know, other people within my building. Our counselors do a great job working with the Walking School Bus program and our front office staff as well. And so it's not just me doing everything, it's everybody. Because with, you know, there's just no way we can do everything by ourselves. And so I think, you know, having that big support structure and, you know, developing wellness committees within schools is important too. So then, you know, there's a lot of people out there, I think, that want to support us. And so just going out and asking for that help is important. And I think also finding community partners to be able to work with us too, whether it's, you know, businesses and organizations. We got a $5,000 grant from Kaiser Permanente for more recess equipment this year, because they just wanted to do a little bit more for us. So just trying to find those partnerships to be able to work with us, I think, is great. And then, you know, our family members. There's a lot of family members that aren't able to come in during the school day to volunteer, but they're always looking for ways to be able to do things. So just being able to find, you know, what way things they do well to be able to, you know, try to support us too.
Yeah. So great call, Matt. I'm glad you said that, because it's hard to accomplish everything alone, but also it's more, it's harder to sustain that. You're going to get burnout if you don't have the people there to help and support and be part of all the great things that you're doing. Okay, so let's hit on a couple other things. Save the date. Mark your calendars now. We are going to cap registration at around 150 participants. we want to sort of keep this at least for the second year more intimate, more like family, you know, like the sense of family and connectedness. So it's hosted at the University of Northern Colorado, so it's about an hour away from Denver. Great spot to visit in the summer, so you can stay a couple of days after or come a couple of days early to see everything that Colorado has. The super early bird price goes throughout the month of December and just the first few days of January, and that is the 2023 pricing. So anyone who wants to commit very early on and attend the summit can take advantage of the best pricing option. And then for the first few months of the new year, we have the early bird pricing, and then if there are any spots left, we have that advanced pricing that starts in May. So if you want to register, the bit.ly link is right there, which I can drop in the chat here. And then if you're on a computer and have your phone, I just drop that QR code in there too. But highly encourage you to consider it. I know summers are often filled with family and other obligations, but if you have the time and are willing, we'd love to have you in Greeley. So to recap here, in the final few minutes that we have, to take action, Matt said it already, recruit help. As Brian said, first thing is download that menus of evidence-based practice and see what you're already doing, and see where maybe that you have some opportunities to grow, and then see where you have the most elements or the most boxes checked and which elements, and then start pursuing the recognition in those. Gather evidence over time. So if you want to submit here in the next few weeks before the end of the month, you can jump on it early, maybe just one element, so that you can get a feel for the process. And then with the spring and summer deadlines there, you can apply for additional recognition. So like Matt said, it doesn't all have to be at once. And then most important, as we've said before, just continue the great things that you're doing to support an active school culture. Because as we all know, and I said it when we started off, there are so many benefits that I think we know, but not everyone around us knows of just about how academic performance improves, the behavior improves, the on task and attention and everything else improves. The academic performance, so everything that we want in students has been proven to be a benefit of physical activity. So let's make that happen.